All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore an idea that's, believe it or not, 250 years old. It comes from Adam Smith, the father of economics, and it could totally flip how you think about the price of, well, pretty much everything. It's a concept that just cuts through all the noise of dollars and cents to get at something way more real.
I mean, it's a question we all think about, right? When you're buying a house, a cup of coffee, or even just trading your time for a paycheck. What is the actual fundamental value of the things we're exchanging all day, every day? It seems like a simple question, but the answer goes surprisingly deep.
And boom, there it is. That's Adam Smith's big answer. He says the real price has nothing to do with money. Nope, it's all about effort. It's the human cost, the toil and trouble that someone, somewhere, had to endure to get that thing into your hands. It's a pretty radical idea, so let's unpack it.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at what Smith even meant by value. Then we'll get into the difference between his two big ideas, the real price and the nominal price. After that, we'll see why money can actually be a pretty terrible way to measure things. And finally, we'll see why this whole distinction from the 1700s is, honestly, more relevant than ever.
Okay, first things first, what did Adam Smith actually mean by value? Well, for him, it wasn't the number you see on a price tag. It was all about power, specifically power over other people's effort.
Now, think about that for a second. It's a complete reframing of what it means to be wealthy. Smith is saying your real fortune isn't the cash in your bank account. It's how much work, how much of other people's time and energy you can get in exchange for that cash. At its core, wealth is command over labor.
All right, so this leads us straight into the first of Smith's big ideas, what he called the real price. You can think of this as the bedrock of his whole argument. It's the universal constant that he believed was hiding underneath every single economic transaction.
So the real price is literally the measurement of that toil and trouble. Let's put it this way. When you buy a shirt, you're not just paying for the fabric. You're really exchanging your own past labor for the labor of the farmer who grew the cotton, the weaver who made the cloth, and so on. You're paying to save yourself all that effort.
So why was Smith so obsessed with labor as the perfect measuring stick? Well, because for the person actually doing the work, an hour of hard labor today is the same sacrifice as an hour of hard labor 200 years ago. It's always a piece of their life, a giving up of their ease, liberty, and happiness. The amount of stuff you can buy with that hour might change, but the effort itself, he argued that its value is constant.
Okay, so if labor is the real price, then what about all the dollars and coins we use every day? Well, Smith had a name for that too. He called it the nominal price, and it's the system we're all very familiar with. The nominal price is just the price tag. It's how many dollars, or back in his day, how much gold or silver something costs. It's not the true value, not really. It's more like a convenient stand-in, an everyday estimate of that real value.
And you can totally see why we do this, right? It's just way easier to say a sandwich costs $10 than to say it costs, 12 minutes of a plumber's labor. Money is a thing. You can hold it. Labor is, well, it's an abstract idea. So we use money because it's a practical shortcut.
But here is the big catch. That convenient shortcut, it has a massive, fundamental flaw. Smith argued that using money to measure value is like trying to measure a room with a ruler that keeps stretching and shrinking on its own.
And this table just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? On one side, you have the real price, labor, which is stable and universal. On the other, you have the nominal price, money, which is constantly fluctuating. One is the true cost, the other is just a convenient estimate that's never quite right.
And Smith himself said it best. How can you possibly measure the value of anything with a tool that is itself always changing in value? Think about it. The value of gold or silver depends on how hard it is to dig them out of the ground. If you suddenly discover a ton of new, easy-to-access mines, the value of that metal drops. And just like that, the prices of everything else get thrown out of whack, even if the labor to make them stayed exactly the same.
He gives us this amazing historical example. Back in the 16th century, when huge silver mines were discovered in the Americas, it suddenly became way easier, it took less labor to get silver. A flood of this cheaper silver poured into Europe, and its value just plummeted. So the nominal prices of everything, bread, land, you name it, shot through the roof. But the real prices, the actual amount of labor it took to bake that bread, that hadn't changed one bit. The yardstick had shrunk. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, that's a cool theory, but does this really matter in my day-to-day life? And Smith's answer is a huge yes,
especially when you start to think about the long term.
Now, he was a pragmatist. Smith wasn't saying money is useless. He totally gets that for your everyday, short-term stuff, like buying groceries or coffee, the money price works just fine. In the same place, at the same time, it's a good enough guide.
But this is where it gets really important. Imagine you're a landowner, and you set up a rental agreement that's supposed to last for generations, and you fix the rent at, say, 100 silver coins a year. Well, as the centuries go by and the value of silver falls, that 100-coin payment is going to command less and less real stuff, less and less labor. Its real value is literally just evaporating over time.
And what I find so brilliant here is how nuanced Smith gets. He actually looked at different ways to measure value over time. He figured that from one year to the next, silver is actually a better measure than something like corn, because, harvests can be really volatile. But from one century to the next, he said corn is actually better, since it's tied to basic human survival. And yet, standing above them all, the only truly consistent standard across any timescale, you guessed it, labor.
And this all boils down to one absolutely critical point for every single one of us. It doesn't matter how many dollars are on your paycheck. What matters is what those dollars can buy. Your actual well-being, whether you feel rich or poor, depends on the real price of your labor, the amount of life's necessities and conveniences you can get for your hard work. Your nominal wage can go up, but if prices rise faster, you are, in real terms, getting poor.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. In today's world, with all the talk about inflation and the changing cost of living, Adam Smith's 250-year-old idea feels more urgent than ever. It pushes us to look right past the number on our payslip and ask a much, much more important question. What is my work, my toil and trouble, really worth?